Welcome to Reddit Echoes, the place where you'll hear everyday stories filled with drama so real, they'll keep your eyes glued to the screen. Today I'll tell you about an intensely irritating family situation where a young daughter had to stand up against her dad's new girlfriend, someone who claimed to be a stepmom, yet had an attitude that blew up the entire household. You'll clearly see what happens when someone enters a family's life in completely the wrong way and how she ultimately got a dose of karma for failing to respect boundaries. Keep watching, because this story is going to leave you both laughing and fuming. Story 1. The new nurse was fired because she suspected my father and I had an inappropriate relationship. Unbelievable. Hi everyone, I'm a 27-year-old social worker employed at a small hospital. My dad, who is 51, is the head nurse of the same ER department where I work. The relationship between my dad and me is completely normal, close. Like any typical father-daughter relationship, nothing unusual at all. However, something completely absurd happened, placing me in an extremely awkward and irritating situation so bizarre, it's almost comical. A few weeks ago, a new nurse joined the hospital. She was young and hadn't gotten to know anyone well yet. One day, while I was in the ER handling paperwork for an elderly patient, I briefly chatted with my dad in the hallway before getting ready to leave. My dad gave me a warm hug and reminded me not to come home late for dinner. Jokingly, I replied, "Tonight dinner's on you and it better be the most expensive steak." Just a harmless, ordinary joke between father and daughter. But for some reason, this new nurse witnessed our interaction, and an unbelievably awful idea popped into her mind. She convinced herself that I was secretly in a romantic relationship with my own father. It sounds absurd, but this is absolutely 100% true. She secretly started spreading rumors that my dad and I were dating, despite the obvious fact that my father is married to my mother, who even regularly brings him lunch at work. The rumor quickly grew out of control and reached several colleagues. An older nurse I've known for a long time approached me and expressed her dislike of the new nurse's behavior, feeling deeply disappointed by these baseless accusations. Yet no one took the initiative to clear things up or confront the new nurse directly. I was extremely irritated by her unprofessional and ridiculous behavior, but initially I intended to just let it go. I didn't want to escalate things and preferred to focus on my job. However, when I realized these rumors were damaging my reputation, my dad's reputation, and disrupting the professional atmosphere of our workplace, I had no choice but to report it to HR. When HR summoned us for a meeting, my father was also called in. When asked about her actions and assumptions, the new nurse stubbornly refused to admit fault, insisting she was just following her intuition and acting based on what she'd heard. After listening carefully to the situation, my father clarified clearly and firmly that I was his daughter, that our relationship was entirely normal, and there was absolutely no reason for suspicion. The nurse immediately turned bright red, lowered her head and began apologizing profusely, expressing deep regret. But by then, the damage had already been done. HR decided to terminate the new nurse immediately, as she was still within her probationary period and had behaved extremely unprofessionally. I won't deny that I felt a bit vindicated seeing the truth come out, but I also couldn't help feeling somewhat sorry for her despite the enormous mess she'd created. This incident even created tension within my family. My mother disagreed with my actions, saying I was overly sensitive and somewhat cruel for causing the nurse to lose her job, especially upon learning she was a single mother. My mom thought there could have been a gentler way to handle this, emphasizing that the nurse was already in a difficult situation. I understood my mom's concern, but I personally believe that in any workplace, especially a hospital, respect and professionalism must be maintained. No one should be slandered or have their reputation unjustly smeared, particularly involving family members. I only wanted to protect myself and my dad from malicious and unfounded gossip. After all that happened, my relationship with my dad remained strong. Although he felt embarrassed and a bit uncomfortable about the whole ordeal, he ultimately understood I'd done the right thing. This experience taught me that sometimes in life, we have to stand up for ourselves no matter how bizarre or uncomfortable the situation may be. If you've ever been falsely accused or faced unfair rumors, don't hesitate to defend yourself and the truth. Sometimes silence is not the best solution. Thank you all for listening to my story. I hope it brought you some amusement, along with an important lesson about resilience and strength in life. Story 2. I worked as an escort to support my family, and then I was betrayed. My name is Melanie. I'm 23 years old and I used to work as an escort. I know it sounds shocking, but it's the truth. Everything began when my family fell into serious financial difficulties. My father left when I was very young and my mother was weak and constantly busy trying to manage everything. Being the eldest sibling, I felt that it was my responsibility to take care of my younger siblings, look after my mom, and handle all expenses from school fees to daily living costs. I did all kinds of jobs, from waiting tables at restaurants selling products online to odd jobs, just to earn a little extra money. But none of it was ever enough. I kept thinking over and over, is there any way to make money faster without sacrificing too much? Eventually, I found myself stepping into a path I never imagined, becoming an escort. It was not a job I ever wanted. Every time I met a client, I felt anxious and hated myself deeply. But I told myself that this was a necessary sacrifice to ensure my mom and siblings had enough food and clothing to make sure my siblings wouldn't suffer deprivation. I kept reminding myself, just get through this period and things will be okay. But then I discovered a harsh truth: my family didn't appreciate the sacrifices I was making. The money I sent home was wasted recklessly on parties, alcohol, and useless things. My dreams of a loving, caring, and supportive family were shattered into pieces. The feeling of betrayal was devastating. I began to hate my own life, feeling like I was someone else, a stranger I no longer recognized. After many months of deep thought, I decided to leave everything behind. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't let anyone know where I was going. I just quietly left with a few belongings and a heart full of wounds. I needed to live for myself, for peace of mind, for a freedom I'd never experienced. Now I'm trying to rebuild my life in a new city. Despite facing many difficulties, I feel that I've found my own worth again. I'm no longer just a person who only knows how to sacrifice. I'm someone who finally knows how to cherish herself. I'm sharing this story not because I'm seeking pity, but to tell those who feel lost and helpless, you are not alone. Each of us has the right to choose our own happiness and freedom. Story 3. When my former colleague became my new boss and my child suddenly had a father, I'm Emily, a single woman, and my story begins with one night that completely changed my life. At that time, I was a graduate student and had to share an office with a few other students, including Jacob, a Chinese guy studying in the same department as me, whom I quite liked as a friend. One day, Jacob was preparing to leave the city and return to his home country after completing his PhD thesis. Our group decided to organize a small farewell party. Everything went normally until Jacob and I unexpectedly crossed the boundary of a colleague relationship. We spent just one night together, never imagining how deeply it would affect my life afterward. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. It felt like being struck by lightning. I was horrified, confused, and overwhelmed with fear. I didn't know how to contact Jacob anymore, as he had already left the university and the country, and both his email and phone number no longer worked. I tried looking for him everywhere, but failed. I didn't expect him to take any responsibility, as I was already mentally prepared to raise the child alone. I thought it was my responsibility and would do everything possible to give my daughter the best life. However, deep inside, I still wished Jacob knew about our child. After all, she's his flesh and blood, a part of him. Then one day an email appeared in my inbox. The HR department announced that Jacob would become my new supervisor, working in the same department as me. This news left me both excited and terrified. How should I handle this now that the person I'd once shared a significant moment with would become my manager? I wondered, should I openly discuss the past and our child with Jacob? Should I candidly suggest keeping a distance to avoid any awkwardness at work? Or should I remain silent and let things fade away as just an old memory? After thinking it over carefully, I decided to privately message Jacob, informing him that there was something important he needed to know, and suggesting a meeting to clearly discuss matters aiming to maintain professionalism and prevent personal issues from affecting our work. Jacob responded calmly, admitting he also felt strange meeting me again and had no idea he was the father of my daughter. When we met in person, everything became clearer. Jacob admitted he was quite shocked but sincerely wanted to be involved and support our daughter if we were both comfortable with it. I felt somewhat relieved because at least my daughter now had a father who acknowledged her existence. However, the story didn't end there. Some colleagues started gossiping and whispering about my relationship with Jacob. Rumors spread like wildfire, damaging both our reputations. The HR department began casting suspicious glances, making informal calls, and placing pressure on us from upper management. I gradually realized that even though I'd prepared myself mentally, life wasn't easy for those trying to move past their history and find fairness. I had to seek support from union representatives and lawyers to ensure my rights and fair treatment at work. Eventually, under pressure from all sides, I was forced to resign. It was a tough decision, but I couldn't allow my career and mental health to suffer any further. I embarked on a new journey, seeking another job and striving to build a stable life for my daughter. Today, my daughter is growing up. She's started to know her father through phone calls and stories I've shared. She also has half-siblings from Jacob's side, and though it's still unfamiliar territory, I'm happy to see her gaining new, broader connections. I'm sharing this story with the hope that those struggling to balance work, family, and complicated relationships can find encouragement. Life constantly tests us, but we must never lose ourselves or the hope for a brighter future. Story 4. I decided to make my dad's girlfriend go away after she tried to send me to bed early. My name is Lisa. I'm 21, and this story is about the tense relationship with my dad's new girlfriend. My family consists of 4 siblings, an older brother who's 26, another older brother who's 23, a younger sister who's 12, and a younger brother who's 10. My mom passed away a long time ago, and since then my uncle has been our legal guardian. My dad used to be a severe alcoholic and was nearly out of contact with us for many years. Recently, he's been trying to improve his life and has successfully been sober for 3 years now. Because of this, we've allowed him to visit occasionally to maintain a family connection, although it's still not very close. About 4 months ago, my dad started dating a woman significantly younger than himself, somewhere in her early 30s. She began appearing at our house so frequently that my siblings and I became uncomfortable. She seemed intent on becoming our stepmother, despite the fact that our dad only visits a few times a week, yet she's always around. Honestly, the older siblings and I take care of each other, and the younger ones just fine. She contributes very little other than pretending to care. Things reached a climax during a family dinner organized by my brothers. Everything was pleasant until my dad suddenly made a very inappropriate joke, and his girlfriend shamelessly followed it up with a nasty comment, indirectly aimed at my deceased mother. My siblings and I were furious. My dad appeared embarrassed while his girlfriend acted as if nothing happened. After that dinner, my brother and I discussed the issue with our uncle, our guardian, and decided to warn my dad about his girlfriend's behavior and words. We honestly didn't know what else to do because she kept showing up more often, even getting a key to our house from our dad, allowing her to come and go whenever she pleased, even when nobody was home. One afternoon, after dropping my younger siblings off at school, I returned home and found her in the kitchen. This was the first time she entered our home uninvited when nobody was around. She was there supposedly to apologize on behalf of my dad for the unpleasant things that had happened. I tried to remain calm and explained clearly that her comments were inappropriate and unacceptable. But she only smirked dismissively and continued to disrespect me, even mocking me for trying to be the mother of my younger siblings. The story didn't end there. Later that evening, she used a fake stepmother tone to order my younger siblings to go to bed, causing discomfort and resentment for all of us. At that point, I'd had enough. When she continued and told me to go to bed too, saying something like, "You should get to bed now as well, my little girl," I felt deeply insulted. That's when I decided to do something she'd never expect. I took her keys, which she'd left on the table, and quietly removed our house key from her keychain without anyone noticing. Later that night, she angrily texted me demanding the key back, calling me a spoiled brat, rude child, and threatening to report me to my brothers and guardian uncle. I remained calm and silent. I simply told her if she wanted to talk, call me around 4 p.m. when I had time. Otherwise, she could take it up with my brothers. She continued calling and repeating sarcastic comments like, "Stop pretending to be mature," falsely claiming my siblings were like her own children, and accusing me of being a spoiled daughter who didn't know how to behave. I knew she was not the kind of stepmother my siblings and I needed. She was merely someone who wanted control, trying to manipulate us under the pretense of affection, but in reality was just imposing and disrespectful. I had been patient for so long trying to keep the peace for my dad and family, but I couldn't endure this behavior anymore. In the end, I kept the house key, and she stormed off in anger. My dad felt deeply embarrassed by the incident. I don't regret protecting my space and dignity, even though it put my dad in a difficult position. I clearly communicated to him that I wanted peace for our family, and that his girlfriend must either learn how to behave respectfully or leave. Thank you for listening to today's story. Family relationships are never simple, especially when new people enter with the wrong attitude. They can either break everything apart or trigger explosive conflicts. What do you think about how Lisa handled her dad's girlfriend? Did she go too far, or was she just protecting herself and her family? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed stories like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss any future videos. I have plenty more exciting and controversial stories waiting for you to discover. See you in the next video.